From Books in Motion, this is Kevin Foley, reading Vegas Vixen by Dennis N. Griffin. Now let's begin with Vegas Vixen. Part 1, The Murder. Chapter 1. Las Vegas, Nevada, December 25th, 2002. It's a hell of a way to start Christmas, Steve Garneau thought, as he looked down at the corpse of the 67-year-old woman sprawled on the floor in front of him. It was only 5 a.m., and the detective had already been at the death scene for half an hour. A 10-year veteran of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, Steve had been to his share of crime scenes. Compared to some of the brutality he had seen, this killing was unremarkable. The victim had been shot once, just behind her left ear. There had been relatively little bleeding and no exit wound. The absence of a gun tended to rule out suicide. She was fully clothed in slacks and a blouse, indicating this was not a sexual crime. There was no evidence of robbery. The house had not been ransacked, and the victim's purse, containing over $200 in cash and several credit cards, was in plain view on a coffee table. Expensive-looking rings still adorned the decedent's fingers. In fact, other than the lifeless body, nothing appeared to be out of place. It began for Steve at 3:30, when the shrill ringing of the phone rudely awakened him from a sound sleep. His boss, Lieutenant Dan Daniels, had dispatched him to the residence of Christina Patterson on South Pecos, where the woman had been found dead, apparently murdered. He knew the address was an upscale neighborhood inhabited by the affluent, including famous entertainers and sports figures, and it wasn't far from the home of Mr. Las Vegas, Wayne Newton. Although he didn't recognize Patterson's name as being a celebrity, he knew she wouldn't have been living in that area unless she enjoyed an elevated social status. This meant something else just as certain: intense media coverage. When the famous, infamous, or wealthy got knocked off, it was certain that there would be no shortage of reporters, cameras, or ink. While some cops welcomed the media spotlight, Steve wasn't one of them. He didn't necessarily trust reporters and preferred to do his job out of the public eye. However, he knew that would be unlikely in this case. Putting his concerns aside, he dressed and headed for South Pecos. Arriving at the victim's house, the detective found 2 marked units and a field supervisor already on site. Yellow tape was up, establishing the perimeter of the crime scene. During his briefing by the supervisor, Steve learned that, per orders from Lieutenant Daniels, evidence technicians were on their way. Portable floodlights had been requested to illuminate the grounds in order to search for clues. The coroner's office had been notified and would be responding shortly. According to the supervisor, the victim lived alone and had been discovered on the floor of the living room by a cleaning woman, a long-time employee of Patterson. The witness was cooling her heels in the kitchen until she could be interviewed. Temporarily suspending his visual examination of the victim and living room, Steve made his way to the kitchen. He found a middle-aged Hispanic woman sitting at the table. She appeared badly shaken. Her eyes were moist and her cheeks were smeared with damp makeup, but no tears were falling at the moment. The detective introduced himself and was relieved to find the woman spoke English with only a slight accent. Taking a seat next to her, he removed a small notebook from his jacket pocket and gathered the basic information: name, address, and age. The witness produced a valid Nevada driver's license, confirming that she was indeed Maria Sanchez. Steve then began the interview. "Maria, how long have you worked for Miss Patterson?"
"I've been cleaning her house at least once a week for about 6 years.
"Do you always come to work this early?" Maria smiled slightly.
"No. She wanted me to come in extra early today because she was going to host an open house starting at 10 o'clock.
"Did you have a key to get in, or was the door going to be left open for you?"
Miss Patterson was a fanatic about her house. She wanted the place cleaned every week. Not long after I started working for her, she gave me a key to the front door.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?